welcome you. Can you hear me now, colleagues? It's a great pleasure to welcome you to this first of the parallel sessions that are going to be happening through this global forum. So the audience is split in 4 ways, and as we were saying to each other just before we came on stream, if we end up with nobody in this room, then our job will not have been done well. So we're here to talk to you about some chapter level activities. As you can see from our names on the screen, there are 4 chapter chairs here. I'm sure you've heard around the conference, or rather the forum already. There are 17 chapters altogether. Each of those chapters has a steering committee of somewhere between 5 and 10 people. So multiply that by about 100 by 17, and you get around about 150 to 170 people around the PRIME global family who are responsible for the stewardship, the direction, the shaping, and the recruitment to PRIME as a whole. So we represent steering groups, steering committees behind us, and we're very happy to be joining you here for the session today. We were asked to talk a little about some of the things that chapters have been doing, why they do them, and the value of them, what other people could potentially learn from them, and also what kind of impact we can see that they're having. Each of my colleagues is going to introduce themselves when we get to them. Our plan is to talk individually for about 4 to 5 minutes each, allowing a good 20 minutes for conversation. The conversation will happen through the chat function, so we'll see your questions going into the chat and we'll respond to them. And that's the plan for our session. I'm just reflecting before we will kick off with the first contribution, which is going to be mine, in fact, talking about things that we've been doing in the UK and Ireland. I was very much taken with something that Andrew Mainwaring said in the earlier part of the conference this morning when he was talking about chapter growth, or rather about PRIME growth, with something like 800 plus members at the moment, the scale of the business school sector as a whole. And I think our proposition working at chapter level is that we are probably the engines of that growth. The PRIME Secretariat and PRIME functioning globally can institute chapters, can draw interested deans together, can ensure that the right people in the right place at the right time. But actually, it's the chapter and the chapter level steering committees drawn up from members across the active institutions who will really seek and be effective at recruiting into the movement as a whole. And the other thing that I think chapters are really important to doing is engaging at, you could call it grassroots level, classroom level, at the coal face, to use a much older term, in terms of what's happening in practice. Because all of the warm words about responsibility and sustainability will be as nothing unless classroom practice changes, or research practice changes, or our local engagement opportunities and actions change. And chapters offer that unparalleled opportunity to talk to members who are actually doing the work and encountering obstacles at times, and working out what it is that we can do as chapters and PRIME globally can do as a movement to overcome difficulties where they might occur. So that's why we hope that this session will be of interest to you. So if my slides could be shared at this stage, that would be really helpful. So what I'm going to be doing is to talk about for a few minutes something very practical that the UK and Ireland chapter has done over a number of years, which is to run competitions. And you might think, well, why am I choosing to talk about competitions at this point? There are many other things that the UK and Ireland chapter does as well. The reasons are that we principally use them as a means of encouraging new members, engaging students and faculty at a very, very local level, encouraging students and faculty to have impact in what they do and to be recognized for what they do. So for us, competitions have been a key growth mechanism within the chapter as a whole. And as you can see here, we've got 3 competitions that we currently run. The oldest of them is a student-facing one that's been running for 6 years. The 2 that I'm mostly going to focus on today, though, are the Research Seed Funding and Innovative Pedagogy Awards, which are very much faculty-focused. And I think another message from the forum so far today has been about the importance of faculty development, faculty engagement, and faculty development. You can see there in this overall slide the focus, the eligibility, and it's important to say around the student one in particular, that it's open to all schools in Ireland and the UK, not just member or signatory schools, because we've never wanted any student to be disadvantaged by a decision that their school might not yet have made to join Prime. And we have a prize fund in each case. So moving into talking about two of the particular competitions that are faculty focused, our Research Seed Funding Awards invite applications on an annual basis from members of staff in Prime member schools within the UK and Ireland. In this case of this particular competition, we have two awards ring-fenced for early career researchers, again thinking about that onward progression, our contribution to faculty development and the next generation of responsible management education scholars. We obviously have a set of goals in relation to contribution to the SDGs and the Prime message, the capacity of that research to trigger collaboration, either to show it or to trigger it, and in a small way trying to encourage research that might otherwise not be undertaken. We have an established process, and if anybody watching this wants to know what our process is and our application forms and how we do those things, there's a website link at the end, and you can download it all from our website. And we draw on a panel of judges from our steering committee, and our expectation is that award winners, apart from obviously publicizing and publishing from their research, will come and present at our chapter conference. Last year, we had 16 entries in the competition from 11 institutions. We made 5 awards of £1,000 each. And I just wanted to give you a flavor of what we're looking at, or those researchers were looking at. So one was looking at barriers to digital inclusion. The second was a highly topical matter around do Black Lives Matter in relation to fashion business students. We had an Irish study looking at SDG skills-based and emerging roles assessment in terms of the responsible leadership agenda of the future. We had another one looking at resilience in relation to capital market instruments in blended finance, and a fifth one in relation to female independent directors and their sustainability orientation. So there's a good cross-section of some really topical, really interesting pieces of research that we supported. And that's just 1 year, obviously. We've had 5 years prior to that as well. A newer competition, only been going for a couple of years. And in fact, in our first year, we didn't attract the kinds of sufficiently focused applications that we hoped. And so we therefore put it on hold for a year and went back into our market for a second year. And here we're looking at innovative pedagogies. That's been a great theme of the forum so far today. So philosophies and teaching practices that we're seeking to change in relation to alignment with the SDGs and Prime. We have the same kind of application process, but in this case, the judges are actually drawn from the wider membership reporting into the steering committee. So again, a great engagement mechanism for judges who are not necessarily on the steering committee, who might want to be possibly in the future. And our award winners presented at chapter conference. We had 10 entries from 8 institutions. We made 3 awards in 2021. And I think if you were in the earlier session, you would have seen my colleague Laura Steele talking or summarizing what they were. One was in relation to a really interesting collaboration with an art gallery in terms of business students engaging with works of art through a neighboring gallery, and to have conversations around decolonization and the implications for the business school agenda, and then to build up materials that can be used beyond that in immediate environment down the line. An emergent visual novel, as it is there, testing the ethical choices professionals need to make, and simulation games to promote the integration of sustainable experiential learning in the curriculum. Again, a flavor there of what we're about. Finally, on the question of competitions, we're going to launch another one next year, which is our 10th anniversary. It's Prime Global's 15th. Next year is our 10th anniversary as a chapter. Another student-facing, group-based competition, engaging with small and medium-sized enterprises within our seven local networks, which are, again, within our chapter, our engines for growth and recruitment. But a focus this time on collaboration as much as competition, because what we recognize is that we're actually, the competition is to some extent a little contradictory with this spirit of Prime and what we're seeking to do, in which for any kind of sustainable development, we really need to be looking at forms of collaboration. So that was my presentation. That's some of the things we've been doing in UK and Ireland. And I'm now going to pass on to my colleague Flavio, who's the chair of Chapter Brazil, to talk about their work in relation to, well, wider issues of strategic collaboration, but I think also bringing, I've lost my capacity to speak, bringing in the business world as well. Flavio, over to you.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's an honor and pleasure to be here with you and the audience and our colleagues here. I ask, please, to share my slides. Thank you. When we were asked to talk about the best practices in our chapter, we choose to talk about the strategic partnership we have with the UNGC Brazil, and this partnership has had several fruitful outcomes that I will share with you today. Before I show these outcomes, I will show you. We ask Carlo Pereira, he is the CEO of UNGC Brazil, to say a few words about this partnership.
The partnership between PRIME and Global Compact Brazil Network is of great importance for the development of future business leaders committed to sustainability. In 2021, our organization in PRIME established a working plan which included the development of research, course, and events, and actually had great results. We delivered, for example, the research SDG Ambition, a relevant paper for Global Compact Network Brazil, which measured how companies are establishing ambitious goals and public commitments towards 2030 agenda. Another product worth mentioning is the course Ambition Loop in the events Technology and Innovation for the SDGs, which brought together business leaders, academics, civil society, governments, and UN agencies to discuss how the private sector and universities can work closer for innovation and sustainability. Our organization in PRIME will continue its effort to develop research on the impacts of the private sector to the SDGs, as well as projects to bring together business and academic leaders towards a more equal and fair world. Thank you very much. The partnership between
Sorry. As Carlo mentioned, we had 2 years ago we had some sessions of strategic planning to define in which ways we are going to work together. But before this planning, the partnership was already in action. As you can see, this was the first product from this partnership. It's a report. It was a survey with 142 companies addressing the integration of SDGs in their strategy. This was this first report. After, as Carol mentioned, we were showing you this. Sorry. This series of workshops that we had together, PRIME and UNGC, to discuss this partnership that we are going to follow. Then after the pandemic, we had an opportunity to develop a report in which we summarize a series of webinars that UNGC has supported in inviting companies, NGOs, government representatives to discuss about the impacts of the COVID in their strategies and their activities. We organized this report as PRIME chapter. Then we had a conjoint event discussing the women leadership, inviting expressive women leaders in our community from universities to address this important subject we have. Then still last year, we have another event. It was a workshop. It's with companies discussing how to integrate the SDGs in their business strategies. This workshop was promoted by UNGC, but we have PRME representatives as facilitators in the workshop. And finally, we have this recent. It was just launched. Has been just launched 2 years ago. It was launched 2 years ago. Sorry, it was a report about the SDG ambition. We have two types of data: survey with 64 companies and a description with 4 case studies, best practice in these companies. Of course, I apologize for all of these figures are in Portuguese, but it's I thought it was important to illustrate what we have been done. Before I invite Krista to make her presentation, I would like to say a last few words. Our partnership, as you could see, it's very fruitful. We have several initiatives done together. It was a continuous development in the quality and the number of activities, and we know that we have new challenges and new opportunities to work together again in the near future. We hope to do so. And thank you very much for this opportunity. And I ask Krista to give her presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Flavio. If we can just share my slides, really happy to be with my colleagues on the panel today, as well as with all the members of the audience. So I'm the chair of the PRME Chapter France Benelux, and we'll go to here we go. Just a very, very brief introduction to our PRME chapter. You heard Jonathan mention it was the 10th anniversary of the UK Ireland chapter. For us, our chapter, it's the 5th anniversary. We grouped together 62 signatory schools, 7 from Belgium, 12 for the Netherlands, 1 from Luxembourg, and France, 42. Won't get into the vision and the mission. You can see what they look like. That means that each one of our chapters has a vision, which of course is clearly linked to the PRME vision and a mission. You can find most of our visions and missions in the chapter, in our chapter in the Responsible Management Education, the PRME Global Movement book that was launched in December 2021. And you can find it's an open access on the PRME website. So just to have you know that. I wanted to cover 2 points, and the first one being the interest for developing North-South strategic partnerships. That was my contribution to this subject when we started to comment on each other's strategic initiatives. I was told that that the fact that we are really seriously working towards North-South partnerships for a chapter that is only 5 years old, that was quite enterprising and new. So what have we done to date? Well, it all started just a year ago at the PRME Chapter Forum session on growth and governance. There are a number of us who are members of the panel. Jonathan was there too, and it was the occasion that I was provided the opportunity for me to meet Sherwat, who was here, Elwan, Ibrahim, from the Chapter Africa, and on the backstage, because of course you know that everything's been virtual, but even things being virtual doesn't mean that we don't have opportunities for networking, because it was from that moment on we had this chat, and we found that there was a common we could have a common goal. We were at the time 4 years old. Sherwat was just spearheading this with other colleagues, the For Africa chapter, and we thought, well, maybe we could help each other. Maybe we could give her chapter some tips about governance, how to grow, and in doing so, we could help them out, and we could, in fact, learn where we shine, where we had strengths, and where we could, of course, move on. So this was one of this is what we can call the getting acquainted at the cross chapter event stage. Following which we had, as all of our chapters, we organized an annual meeting, and this took place actually a week later. It was all in 2021 in October, and we had planned this for several months, and we wanted to call it Collaborations with African Universities and Schools. And we invited Sherwat, who attended virtually, and in doing so, all the questions about budget, how do we fund her coming over, how do we, just no longer existed, because thanks to technology, she was able to join us. So we call this a virtual invitation to regional annual event special session, and it was hybrid actually. Sherwat joined us, and the rest of our colleagues were physically there in Toulouse, in southern France. And I was accompanied by Jan Bain from Antwerp University in Belgium, who was about to engage on a sabbatical to Rwanda. So everything kind of fit in, and we had we started to have a conversation about why we were interested in collaborating, what our experiences were. Just on the side, too, I personally had experience in Senegal for over 5 years, teaching in the Dakar Supdeco school such subjects as diversity and gender equality. So we thought that we had common affinity for Africa, Europe projects. So the other, let's go on. What have we done to date? Leading strong from those experiences, we during this strategic action coordination, what has been called the SAC, that we're all guided through as chapter steering groups. We included this collaborative North-South partnership in our strategic mission. So we actually integrated our intention into a strategy making process to work with to strengthen ties with African schools, organizations, governments on sustainability projects, both educational and research. Following which, we have a best practice information sharing. Just actually, we made it happen a couple of months ago with Sherwat. Jan, again, this time he was in Rwanda. He was on his sabbatical leave, and one of our colleagues who was in a steering group was originally from South Africa. And it was just through an informal conversation where I understood that she also regularly goes back to Africa, not just to South Africa, but to Kenya, other countries as well, on sustainability projects. So the conversations were growing and with strengthening, but for the time being, just between our steering group and between a chapter chair. So what will be the next steps? Well, the next steps, we intend to have a second session on collaborating with African universities and schools in our upcoming annual meeting. During which and before even this meeting, we'll be able to collect information from other chapter members, so to go beyond our steering group member conversations regarding their existing collaborations with African schools, corporations, NGOs, students, student associations, alumni, to be able to investigate further common sustainability research and education, innovative education opportunities, either underway or that we could spearhead together. Now, what opportunities have we identified? And this will be my closing point. I won't even talk about constraints, but because for the moment we only see opportunities. We clearly when a colleague leaves for a sabbatical trip to work on a sustainability project in Africa, this is a fantastic opportunity to design projects with this person and with his or her local contacts. When we have France Benelux colleagues of African origin who have been residents of, for example, for any period of time, or who were born there, they do regular return trips to Africa. This is a fantastic opportunity to also collaborate on sustainability projects. We also were able to identify certain schools. Mine, for example, I'm like Sherwat. I start with mine because I know what we're doing. I'm sure there are others out there. We have a UNESCO chair for sustainability, which has which includes this North-South co-learning framework intention. There are innovative sustainability education programs in increasing numbers in Africa. We also observed that there's a real, an increasingly structured approach to research on sustainability issues, meaning that visible research laboratories, either that are in Africa or that are working with other research laboratories outside of Africa. And visibility for authors that are authors, researchers, and educational projects. And the idea too is, we're very, very clear about this, is that we can learn obviously as much from what is going on and from our African colleagues as they can learn from us. So really, really looking at this from a very collaborative form. And with the recent Prime Global Students initiatives, and I know Sherwat is going to mention this too, this is a fantastic opportunity to tap into these initiatives, whether it's the Ambassador Program or the Regional Leadership Program. Our students can also very clearly help us move forward on this agenda. So I thank you very much for having this opportunity to share our intentions with you.
Sherwat, you're on mute.
Of course. All right. All right. The slides are clear, right, Jonathan? Okay. Thank you. Do you hear me?
The slides are fine, but I haven't seen one move on yet, so just see if they're moving on.
There we go. Are they moving?
No, it hasn't moved on. No.
No? All right. Okay. Stop sharing and then... All right. We did try this. Share screen again.
So while Sherwat's just reloading her slides, I mean, encouragement to all of you, if I understand there is some questions, there's some comments coming through in the chat. We can't actually see the chat that our audience can see. We're reliant on a cut and paste by our backroom supporters. So if you do have questions, specific questions that you'd like to put to us after Sherwat has finished her presentation, then please do put them in the chat now so they can be transported over to us. Sherwat, how's it going now?
Is it not flipping? I thought it was flipping up and down. No?
No.
All right. How about this now without full screen? Is it showing?
That's fine. That's fine.
All right, let's go with that then, if that's okay. All right, and thank you again. Perfect. I'm happy actually to know that, you know, I do want to have some time for conversation, and thank you, Krista, for covering a lot of the stuff that we have planned. So hopefully it won't take as long as the 5 minutes I have planned. Again, Prime Chapter Africa is the newest chapter, the 17th one in the Prime Chapter group. Today is the 15th anniversary for Prime. So, you know, you hear people mentioning these numbers, and we have the UK with the 10 and the French one with the 5. So yeah, we're just actually beginning in June. This will be our first formal meeting for the new committee coming in. And we're very excited because we have a lot of work to do. The region we've been assigned is huge. It's diverse, you know, and very complex. And the participation so far from higher education institutions is minimal, I would say. Those institutions who chose in the past years before having the chapter developed, you know, to just go on their own and sign up to Prime. So it's great, but we still need to expand, as you can see, geographically and across more institutions. The vision actually and the values we have currently match the region. They were designed by the founding committee that I was honored to be part of also. It's all about sharing knowledge and good practice, especially innovative ways. This is, I think, one of the benefits that happen when you come later in the game, that you can actually build on what's done. So, and then hopefully improve or add or innovate. And that's where we want to be. But there's a lot also, given the continent's, diversity, cross-learning and ambition in terms of really pushing, and there's no other better word to say it, the SDGs into business school curricula, the teaching, the research, and partnership. So kind of the slides I have to share will follow these, challenges that that are imposed, I think, on this specific baby chapter we have here. And we had the luxury of, this founding committee planned carefully. How do we make sure that we capitalize all what's, all the efforts done so far with Prime in terms of the organization, and try to move it and mobilize this into the efforts we want to put in the coming few years. So one of the unique things we have, again, had to do with what we call regional hubs. You don't have to be a Prime signatory to join into those. We just want to spread the word, create awareness. We will use these, options of designing a regional hub where we can focus on a geographical region. Maybe transportation and flying in for networking purposes can be designed in a better way for those, to spread the word, to get people excited about responsible management education, and then see how they can maybe join in. We recognize, again, how when you're creating something new, you need to have strategic input from the deans. But again, they're very busy to join us, and we were very grateful to have even deans be member of the founding committee. So we wanted to create a way where we can have them as advisories and make sure we have the buy-in of those institutions whenever we want to, quickly get things done. I'll talk later on partnerships, and especially those that focus on Africa, to show exactly some of the best practices that we're hoping to get by in the coming few years. The North-South collaboration, thank you for that. But we also have a member of the new committee from diaspora. So we know that there's a lot of Africa faculty out there and academics, and we want to make sure that they bring in all that knowledge, in meaningful ways to the group. We were very ambitious with also working closely with the UN Global Compact, similar to what Flavio was talking about. We actually, again, I think are lucky in this aspect because I don't know how to say it. So Africa is like this big case study, right? So I mean, you want to study it, you want to teach it. A lot of people are looking into local cases, and we're really hoping to build on that, working very closely with the UNGC chapters in our region, and again, build on a very similar examples to what Flavio was doing. We even have Africa also had the UNGC for Africa have their own strategic vision for what they want to do in the region, and it just was done a couple of years ago, and we're going to just try to map that into our coursework. So there's very clear propositions here for us to do, but still the challenges are many. One is, again, how, we do know that, belonging to a private institution, that the most impact can happen in public institutions. We're trying to see how we can work on that one and build on what's already done, and have that, by showing a lot of what we're doing today, again, have people think about, okay, what would work for me? How would it work for, in my institution? And then we spread that awareness, and then hopefully we get them to commit to the 6 principles of Prime in their institutions and what they do. But I think the biggest challenge will be, of course, building that tier of faculty, that's going to and faculty development, again, was mentioned today, Jonathan, multiple times, to make sure that we have that, to spread that around, and things we're going to focus on in the coming near future. So in my institution, at least, we have a lot going on, and we have community-based learning courses, experiential learning, focus, when Africa is your playground. I heard words today in some sessions saying, students need to see poverty for their eyes. I thought that was the only option, because you can't actually step out. I know we might be, having a lovely campus, or maybe living in more, bubbled situations than the rest of the region, but especially if you're in Cairo and different places. But then again, you just need to step a few, steps outside to see it firsthand. And again, we never, in Africa at least, see that dissection. We never feel we have to go somewhere to see poverty or to see realism or to understand what's going on. And experiential learning has been part of the AUC's commitment to bring in the class, the external community into the classroom. We have courses designed in that format. We design and work with industry in a lot. I think all of our courses have like a hands-on application project for that. Where in my course, at least, it's supply chain management. Towards the end of the course, I have students work with companies, and again, I borrow from the UNGC network and try to see what list of companies are listed there, and I invite my students to study what's going on from an operations and supply chain. And they actually, towards their final assignment, do kind of a map of the SDGs and what's going on. And there's a little bit in SDGs, how it works for me at least, is that you can actually be doing a lot of effort, and you need just try to tie it to one of the KPIs that are spread out around the 17 SDGs. And students enjoy that. They feel that there's hope. They feel that, a little bit of that will come a long way. There's that kind of feeling. We have our own center of case studies that focus on publishing local cases in local language sometimes. Also, it's a new initiative. But then again, a lot of this can also spread across the continent. We have a venture, a lab supporting entrepreneurship. We have an observatory tracking women's engagement in top, in boards of organizations. We have a civic engagement. There's a lot of initiatives happening. And again, just what I'm trying to think is that moving forward, we really need to find a way to have the most impact, whether, again, we're going to partner through North-South, we're going to partner with, institutions that have similar mandates like us, believe in what we believe in, and we work in hand. So instead of doing, Jonathan, our own competition, I would rather go with yours or with one that GBSN is running, and then I'm doing research groups, and I saw a comment on working groups. I think, again, how do working groups integrate with the African Academy of Management? So, and all that's kind of structure that we can help. I mean, I know there's so much being done already because Africa and sustainability have been always an issue, but how do we make sure that it's clear? There's an example that, like today, we can share that someone say, hey, I can do that too. And of course, and I'm just going to speak on the last one on the Prime Global students, because we're very lucky to have that there for the first year with the learning of it, and they were having just exposing students to this kind of setting for a limited amount of their education is key. I was sending out emails to everyone I know, for students to be members in, the regional leaders or the, part of the ambassadors. That level, again, was not there before. And I'm very happy to come in a time where it's established to build on that. I don't want to take more time. And so I'd rather stop sharing and then go to the, the conversation back and forth. I enjoy that part mostly, being an academic, I guess.
Okay, so thank you, Sherwat. We've got precisely 6 minutes left in our session, so we're going to make maximum use of them. Thank you to my colleagues for their contributions. And we've had 2 questions or observations that have come in over the last few minutes. One was from Alec Worson, talking about how giving examples of where one chapter has learned from another and applied what they've done in a slightly different way. And in many ways, what Krista and Sherwat have been talking about is about that kind of collaboration, but a slightly different form. Flavio, I know you want to say something about the Prime World Tour.
Yes, I think this is a good example of the collaboration, because the Prime World Tour, I don't know if everybody knows about it. It's a kind of we invite people, authors, to submit articles to be discussed between editors of high impact journals. The first edition has been hosted by Brazilian chapter. Now we have the Malaysian chapter, and so on. I think this is a good example. Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you, Flavio. And in fact, the concept, although it's moved on slightly, was actually emerged from something that happened in the UK and Ireland, where we worked with a similar set of journals on exactly that kind of opportunity. So I suppose another example that I would give is the collaboration across chapters in terms of moving on our good practice in terms of the sharing information on progress reports, which all institutions have to do, and chapters have been taking increasingly a very proactive role in encouraging collaboration, conversation about how the SIP report evolves over time and how we can do them better. And there's a whole separate session going on about SIPs, I know, so I won't digress there. But I'm just thinking we've got one further observation here about resources, and I wondered whether Krista wanted to comment on that, because the question, or as an observation about Horizon Europe EU funding, investing in North-South relations, and whether those kind of funding sources provide an opportunity for doing more of what you're talking about. Or perhaps Sherwat, I don't know whether either of you would like to comment on that.
We are in the stage, we are investigating funding possibilities. We're investigating, we're starting to plot on our calendar also colloquiums, conferences that where we could start presenting some research papers where funding is really important. But what I also noticed when I listed the opportunities is that sometimes you don't need funding to take advantage of a colleague who is already in Africa on a sabbatical leave and can carry out interviews, for example, collect data because he's there, and so we can use that, or a colleague that regularly goes back and forth. So maybe that's frugal innovation in terms of doing research, but and virtually we can do a lot of things together. So we will, thank you very much though for this information. We will pursue such leads. Thanks, Anik.
So yeah, building on that, I worked also in addition with Krista here with Lisa Froelich on a chapter. And this, I think we have to focus on the discipline base. We all, and some, I think most of us are academics with certain focus areas. So we would have like a joint course where we would want it to come in. She would teach a module in my class and I would teach one in hers. And the fact that she's the head of the Dutch chapter and I'm working with the Africa chapter at that moment, we put it out there as an initiative. And I think this brings back to what I was trying to say. We don't have, there's a lot, the working groups. We're not coming in to say, this is how it's done. Basically, you do the effort with the minimum frugal way you can, based on your passion, your interest, and you then try to show it in, as a showcase, something that can be done. There's this I5 project, also the Lego project, where you have 7 members of 17 chapters sitting in a room continuously trying to see whether these tools are going to be able to be used for experiential learning. This talk, again, was very common today. So, and again, that has a budget for it, and there's a spreading budget for that one. I don't know if that answers the 2 questions, but
thanks, Sherwat. And I know we have exactly 1 minute left, so I'm going to this wasn't rehearsed in advance. I'm going to ask all the people around the room to say if you could think of one phrase which describes the work of the chapters and the value of the work of the chapters, what would it be? Krista, do you want to go?
Again, collaboration. Collaboration is the word for me.
Collaboration for you. Flavio, your word of the day or phrase of the day?
I would say challenging.
We've got contribution, we've got challenge. Sherwat, what's going to be yours? Ambition
with organizational structure, or ambition it is for me.
Ambition, challenge, contribution, and I'm going to add one other word with the C as well, which is critique. I don't think we should ever be afraid to critique ourselves and others. With that said, thank you very much for tuning into this session. We wish you a very good rest of forum.
Thank you.